Applause has erupted in the Supreme Court as a killer was sentenced to life in prison for the cold-blooded murder of his ex-wife, Samantha Fraser. Adrian Basham's crimes were described as heinous, savage and without remorse. Adam Hegarty reports.
What kind of person gets charged with 5 counts of sexual assault against his own wife? But you know what's worse? He raped her, his very own wife. So who is this man, and why didn't his wife divorce him after all that happened? This is the story of Adrian Basham, who tortured his wife Samantha Fraser for years. Samantha Joy Fraser was born in Swan Hill on July the 22nd, 1980, as the first daughter to Janine and Trevor Fraser. She had a brother and a younger sister. To stay safe, her upbringing was anything but usual. Her whole family was part of a cult, which she finally found the strength to leave as she disagreed with what it stood for, becoming the first in her family to do so. Despite the hardships imposed by her childhood, Samantha worked tirelessly to become the college captain and dux of her high school before going to university to study psychology, eventually establishing a fulfilling career as a full-time psychologist. She soon married a man in Riddles Creek, but that marriage ended after just a year, when the man was found to be cheating. In 2006, she met another man named Adrian Basham through mutual friends, which marked the true beginning of a troubled life. Adrian James Basham was born in September 1976 to an unnamed mother and his father James, and he's the older brother to his sister Amanda. Compared to Samantha's upbringing, his childhood was certainly much more ordinary. He completed a carpentry apprenticeship and earned several other accreditations related to carpentry, construction, and occupational health and safety, and ended up working in commercial construction. Adrian and Samantha met in 2006, and a meaningful connection was immediately formed, leading to their marriage in 2007, after which they settled in the seaside town of Cowes on Victoria's beautiful Phillip Island. In 2009, the couple had their first child, a daughter named Jemima. 2 years later, in 2011, they had a son named Rex. However, their relationship was in no way as beautiful as it seemed to the world. As a fly-in, fly-out worker in Western Australia, he would be away for a month and return only for one short week before traveling again. When Adrian returned home to Phillip Island, he would always insist that Samantha meticulously organized their home, even down to the minute detail of having all the jars in the pantry face out with their labels. Not only that, he would openly criticize her parenting abilities and even told her she wasn't a great mother. Though it was difficult, everything remained bearable until 2014, which was when Adrian locked Samantha in the pantry and sexually assaulted her while their children were nearby calling out for their mother. Then Samantha cried, "What are you doing? The kids are out there." Despite that, Adrian continued with committing this horrific crime of spousal rape, which he had planned for a long time. Later in the same year, this happened again when Samantha woke up to Adrian being intimate with her. This time, their son Rex was in the bed with them. She said that she'd woken up to Adrian doing this so that it had started while she was asleep. This kept happening for a while until Samantha finally decided to put an end to this and told Adrian, "You can't do that. I was asleep. This is rape." When Samantha asked Adrian for physical space, he outright refused and became even more offensive, this time in public. He would grab her inappropriately in front of others, making Samantha very uncomfortable. When she tried to assert herself, Adrian responded by calling her a bully and controlling. By January 2017, Samantha and Adrian's marriage was on the rocks. Adrian had become incredibly domineering and controlling, frequently accusing Samantha of having affairs with men and women they knew. Samantha spoke to Adrian and his father James about a separation, citing domination, aggression, controlling behaviors, and spousal rape as the reasons. However, talking to his father changed nothing, as Adrian continued on with his atrocious crimes. In the midst of all this, both Samantha and Adrian began to turn to psychologists to seek help in understanding their own perspectives. In an effort to save their marriage, Adrian was referred by his general practitioner to Terence Melvin, a psychologist for anxiety. His first appointment was on February the 23rd. Unexpectedly for Mr. Melvin, Adrian attended the session with Samantha where they agreed to go through couples counseling together. Mr. Melvin saw both Adrian and Samantha individually before seeing them together. On March the 9th, Samantha told Mr. Melvin that she was afraid of leaving the relationship due to Adrian's domination and control over her. In total, they had 3 joint sessions with Mr. Melvin, with the last on April the 5th, as further sessions required another medical referral. Samantha also told her psychologist that Adrian had continued to harass her via texts and phone calls, using threatening language such as, "You never know when someone will break into your house and do you harm." Samantha provided a written narrative of events, which was placed on file. After months of trying to separate from Adrian, he finally agreed to settle. However, Samantha still had questions about why he hadn't agreed in the first place. Additionally, despite agreeing to separate, Samantha suspected that Adrian might have been watching her through a camera or other spyware. This all came to a pause when, in early August, the police arrested and charged Adrian Basham with the historical sexual assault of Samantha Fraser. Following this arrest, Senior Constable Lone applied for a variation of the interim order to prevent Adrian from going to or remaining on Phillip Island. Even though the variation was granted, Adrian did not comply. To make matters worse, Adrian applied for an intervention order against Samantha, citing physical, financial, and sexual abuse. With insufficient evidence, he remained free despite the charges. After Samantha learned about this, she knew she had to protect herself, especially when he had already threatened her. She installed additional security equipment and barricaded her windows with pieces of wood to prevent them from being opened from the outside. As a professional psychologist, Samantha saw how some of Adrian's characteristics could make him very dangerous. She knew her life was at risk and saw how her decision to take back power and leave him could trigger him to retaliate in an aggressive and dangerous manner. She told her friends that he would kill her, the children, and then himself. Unfortunately, she was right, though not fully. Adrian did plan to kill Samantha, but whether he would succeed was still to be determined. Adrian was in New Zealand from the 6th to the 19th of July. Upon returning to Australia, he stayed at his sister's home in Chelsea Heights. On July the 20th, at 10:08 a.m., a male hand was shown covering the camera with a yellow post-it note or something of the like on the CCTV footage from a camera affixed to the front of Adrian's sister's house. It fell off about 30 seconds later, successfully capturing Adrian as he prepared his motorcycle and luggage and left wearing a distinctive black and white motorcycle jacket and a black and green motorcycle helmet. This was 10:30 a.m. Adrian rode his motorcycle to Phillip Island and then to San Remo, leaving his usual mobile phone in Chelsea Heights and traveling with a different phone registered under the name of his new girlfriend, Kylie. On the day after Samantha's birthday, July the 23rd, 2018, Samantha got the children up and ready for school and left the house. As soon as she left, Adrian, who was already hiding outside her house, slipped into the garage and waited as she came back and parked her car. Adrian surprised Samantha as she sat in the driver's seat, savagely assaulting her and causing 41 separate blunt force injuries. Some injuries were visible on the skin, while others, which were more severe, were found under the skin. The injuries to Samantha's fingers were consistent with defensive wounds sustained while blocking. It appeared that all of the blunt force trauma were inflicted around the same time, and she was likely unconscious after the assault. After assaulting her, Adrian rearranged the scene to make it appear as though Samantha had committed suicide by hanging. He placed a small stepladder on its side beside Samantha's suspended body and removed a white top from the premises. Samantha survived for at least 10 minutes afterward, although she was likely unconscious.
Your crime was objectively heinous. It was the ultimate act of family violence. Her last conscious moments would have passed in terror. Your abominable conduct as worst case. It deserves a life sentence.
Once hanged, she sustained ligature marks to the neck. While Adrian was manipulating the crime scene, he was noticed by a neighbor walking his dog. From the top of the driveway, he saw Adrian do something next to his garbage bins as the garage door was raised, about 2 feet from the ground. He made eye contact with Adrian but did not speak to him. The neighbor turned away before looking back. Adrian continued to look at him as he walked off, following him more or less with just a body movement. After everything, Adrian needed a place to go underground, so he decided to stay at his father's home for a couple of days. Meanwhile, Samantha's body was found after the police made a forced entry into the garage by a backyard rear pedestrian access door. The police described the house to be fortified as there were no signs of forced entry into the house. Samantha was found hanging on a rope with her neck tied in a hangman's noose-style knot. Rather than being tied to the track to the garage door, the rope was instead wrapped around the track of the sectional garage door and held in place by friction and Samantha's weight. The police then called Adrian and notified him about Samantha's death, to which he reacted with apparent surprise. Early investigations suggested that it was suicide, and during which Adrian continued to avoid any contact with the police. Over the next 2 days after her death, the police had a series of communications with Adrian's legal representatives. Initially, this was for Adrian to provide a statement about Samantha, but based on information gathered, it was decided on the afternoon of July the 25th that Adrian should be treated as a suspect. An arrangement was made for Adrian to surrender himself for an interview in the company of his lawyer at 9 a.m. on July the 26th, 2018. Adrian Basham was arrested at the Melbourne West Police Complex. All the evidence pointed to Adrian as the culprit, including DNA samples from Samantha's car matching his DNA. At trial, Adrian pleaded not guilty to murder, maintaining that Samantha Fraser had killed herself. His defense claimed that he had a physical altercation with Samantha on the day of her death, but that she was alive when he left and probably took her own life afterward. During the trial, which involved the testimony of 79 witnesses, the jury was told that Basham was controlling and abusive during the couple's marriage and even after their separation. The Supreme Court was also told that Basham had threatened Samantha and that she was scared of him. Regardless of his continued pleas to plead not guilty, the judge was not convinced that it was a suicide, and Adrian was found guilty of murdering his wife. He was charged with first-degree murder, convicted, and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. And with that, we conclude today's story. Do you think this crime could have been prevented if the police had arrested Adrian on the initial charges of sexual assault? If you enjoyed this video and want to watch more fascinating topics like this, click on the video that's popping up on your screen. Until then, take care and goodbye.